Epilepsy is a disability in South Africa, and people living with epilepsy are covered by a myriad of labour laws. You have the Constitution in South Africa, which protects everyone. Below that, specifically covering disabilities, is the Employment Equity Act, and that covers unfair discrimination. And people living with epilepsy need to know that they are fully protected. Now, the question often comes in around discrimination, and should a person living with epilepsy tell their employer, existing employer, or potential employer? And I think that the question there lies in, should you tell, when you're applying for a job, should you tell your future employer that you have epilepsy? So there's no compulsion in terms of law that you have to disclose. It's not at all. But the question lies in that the recommendation often is, disclose when you have the security of the job. So if you're going for a job interview and you get that offer letter, you get an employment contract, that gives you that security of the job. At that point you can disclose. And again, this is a very personal decision. So it's really, are you comfortable to disclose? And some people will only disclose in time as they're more comfortable in the employment relationship. Some people may wish to disclose upfront. Some people apply for a job and enclose or attach a neurologist's medical report. It's really up to you. There is no set rules around that. So disclose it when you're comfortable, and understand that the advantage of disclosing is that the employer should then make what they call reasonable accommodations. So they should, and it goes back to education, if you have a seizure while you're at work, if the people in your team or around you know that you are living with epilepsy, what do they do in terms of knowing how to help you in that moment of a seizure? What should they do? It goes back to education, it goes back to first aid. And how should they help you? And then what should the employer do to help you in terms of time off work, if you've got to go for a medical appointment, if you have a seizure while you're at work, letting you go home to rest at that time. Those are the issues that need to be, and if your employer knows that you're living with epilepsy, they know that they can make those accommodations. You don't have to tell them, absolutely not. But telling them has the advantages of educating them, which means they can reasonably accommodate you in your working place. So you have this law protecting you. And again, I mean, there's always the question of discrimination. So there's the subject of sort of discrimination, which is not obvious, where you may be afraid to tell your boss, your line manager, that you're living with epilepsy. So there you don't necessarily want to make it obvious. If you're not comfortable talking to someone like that, you're working with your immediate superior, go to someone independent like your HR department in your company and tell them they have to keep that confidential. So they don't even need to tell, if you don't ask them to disclose it to anyone else, they don't have to tell any line management about you living with epilepsy. However, if you wish it to be disclosed and you want, for example, the people around you working with you to know that you're living with epilepsy, they can educate your team, and that way you can be better protected should you have a seizure, and they can know how to treat you in that moment. So there are the laws, there's the issue of discrimination, and there's the issue of disclosure up front before a job. And then once you've got the job, is educating people around you when you're comfortable, educating them about you living with epilepsy.